The days that followed at La Belle Table felt like a new beginning for everyone, especially for Maria. The restaurant, which had once been so quiet and gloomy, now buzzed with energy and happiness. Every morning, the staff arrived with fresh hope. The cooks shared jokes as they prepared their stations, and even the waiters, who once seemed tired and grumpy, walked with a bounce in their step. The walls seemed brighter, the smells warmer, and the sound of laughter was everywhere. Maria felt her life changing in small and big ways. She no longer wore just the plain kitchen apron now. She had her very own chef's jacket. It was a little loose on her, but she wore it proudly. When she put it on for the first time, her eyes filled with happy tears. Mrs. Carter took a photo and sent it to Maria's mother, who called that night with joy and pride in her voice. Maria promised her family she would keep working hard and make them proud. As a junior cook, Maria was given new tasks in the kitchen. She learned how to prepare sauces, how to roast vegetables perfectly, and how to plate dishes in beautiful ways. Chef Antoine took time every day to teach her something new. He showed her how to taste with her eyes closed, how to trust her senses, and how to let food tell a story. Sometimes he would ask for her ideas on new dishes, and Maria would remember recipes from her childhood, adding her own twist. The staff began to rely on Maria's opinions. If something didn't taste quite right, they asked her to help. She was careful with her words, always polite, and people respected her gentle honesty. Lisa, the grill cook, said, "Maria has magic taste buds." Peter, the pastry chef, let Maria help with desserts, and together they made a new cake inspired by Maria's grandmother's recipe. They called it Abuela's orange cake, and it quickly became a favorite. The real change, however, was in the dining room. The customers noticed the difference immediately. Old regulars who had stopped coming started to return. New guests heard about Maria's miracle soup and wanted to try it for themselves. The reviews online became full of happy stories, families celebrating birthdays, couples having anniversary dinners, and neighbors gathering for Sunday lunches. People didn't just talk about the food. They talked about how the restaurant made them feel at home. One evening, a local newspaper reporter came in for dinner. After tasting the soup and hearing whispers about Maria's story, the reporter asked to interview her. Maria felt nervous, but agreed. She spoke quietly about her journey, her family, and her love of cooking. The next week, a beautiful article appeared in the paper, "The Shy Helper Who Saved La Belle Table." The story brought even more customers, and soon it seemed like everyone in town wanted to meet Maria. With more guests, the restaurant grew busier than ever. The team worked hard, sometimes late into the night, but they were happy to do it. Daniel Harper, the CEO, visited often, no longer hiding in the corner, but greeting guests and encouraging the staff. He met with Maria regularly to check on her training, ask for her ideas, and remind her of how important she was to the restaurant's new success. One afternoon, Daniel called a special meeting with all the staff. He stood at the front of the kitchen, holding a letter in his hand. "I have wonderful news," he said, smiling. "Because of your hard work, La Belle Table is now the top-rated restaurant in our neighborhood. We are not only staying open, but we will also expand, starting with a new outdoor dining area and a second location next year." The staff cheered and clapped, hugging each other in celebration. Maria felt tears come to her eyes again, but this time she let them fall. She was proud not just of herself, but of everyone who had worked together to save the restaurant. She remembered how difficult things had been at first, how tired everyone was, how hopeless it had felt. But now, hope filled every corner. La Belle Table grew. Daniel kept his promise to Maria. He paid for her cooking classes at a local school, where she learned from famous chefs and met new friends. Sometimes Maria was still shy, but she always remembered her first day, her grandmother's soup, and the kitchen that became her second home. She worked hard in class and always brought back new ideas for the restaurant. At the end of her first cooking course, Maria invited her family to La Belle Table for a special dinner. She cooked for them herself, serving soup, bread, and abuela's orange cake. Her parents and little brothers were amazed. They hugged Maria and told her how proud they were. Mrs. Carter and Chef Antoine joined the celebration. And even Daniel Harper came by to shake Maria's father's hand and thank him for raising such a wonderful daughter. Maria's journey became an inspiration to everyone at the restaurant. The staff told her story to new helpers who joined the team, reminding them that no job was too small and no idea too unimportant. The kitchen helpers, who once worked quietly in the background, now shared their thoughts and tasted the food with pride. Maria encouraged them, always saying, "If you have something to share, speak up. Never know who might be listening." Over time, Maria grew more confident. She still worked hard, arriving early and leaving late, but she also learned to balance her work with moments of rest and joy. She took time to laugh with friends, help her family, and visit the small park near her apartment to enjoy the flowers. In sunshine, the restaurant continued to do well. The outdoor dining area opened, filled with flowers and fairy lights, making every meal feel special. The second location opened the following year, and Daniel asked Maria to help train the new staff. She traveled to the new restaurant, taught the cooks her soup recipe, and made sure everyone felt welcomed. Maria was nervous at first, but she quickly realized she could share her gifts with more people. La Belle Table became known as a place where everyone felt welcome. People came for the food, but they stayed for the kindness, the laughter, and the feeling that they were part of something good. Maria's story was shared in newspapers and online. She never forgot where she came from, or the people who helped her along the way. Sometimes, on quiet evenings after a busy night, Maria would sit in the empty dining room and think about her journey. She knew her life had changed forever, not because of luck, but because she had dared to believe in herself, even when she was scared. She was grateful for the chance to make a difference, to bring joy to others, and to find a place where she truly belonged. And so, the shy kitchen helper, who once worked in silence, became the heart of La Belle Table's chef, a teacher, and a friend to everyone who walked through the restaurant's bright red door. Maria's journey was a reminder that even the smallest voice, when spoken with love, could change the world. ChatGPT said, Daniel Harper had owned restaurants for years, but he had never felt so worried about one as he did about La Belle Table. Every week, he quietly visited the restaurant, hoping to find some spark that would convince him to keep the doors open. Most days he left feeling disappointed and heavy-hearted. But on this particular afternoon, as he sat at his usual table in the corner, something felt different in the air. There was a gentle energy, the staff moved a little faster, and a warm, rich smell drifted from the kitchen that made him remember why he had opened restaurants in the first place. As the server, Anna, brought him a bowl of the famous tomato basil soup, Daniel noticed her smile was more genuine than usual. He dipped his spoon into the steaming bowl, expecting the same flat taste he'd had for weeks. But as soon as the soup touched his tongue, he paused. The flavor was bright and full of life. There was a gentle tang, a smoky warmth, and an unexpected freshness that made him want to take another spoonful right away. For the first time in a long time, Daniel finished the entire bowl. He motioned for Anna. "Did something change with the soup?" he asked, trying not to sound too curious. Anna grinned. "Yes, sir. The chef tried something new today. Everyone loves it." Daniel nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and curiosity. He finished his meal, ordered another bowl just to be sure, and watched the kitchen from afar. He noticed the staff's faces were brighter, and even the customers were talking and laughing more than usual. It felt like a little miracle. When he finished his second bowl, Daniel asked if he could meet the person who had made the soup so special. In the kitchen, Chef Antoine was finishing a plate of pasta when Anna delivered Daniel's message. "Customer in the corner wants to meet the person who made the soup," she said. The chef raised his eyebrows and looked at Maria. "It was your idea, Maria. You should come with me." Maria felt nervous, but Chef Antoine gave her an encouraging nod. Together, they walked out to the dining area. Daniel stood to greet them, smiling warmly. "You must be Chef Antoine," he said, shaking the chef's hand. "And who is this?" "This is Maria, chef," Antoine said. "She's the one who changed the soup." Maria blushed and looked down at her shoes. She didn't know what to say. Daniel looked at her closely, noticing her shy smile and gentle eyes. "Well, Maria, you have made the best soup I have tasted in months." "Thank you." Maria looked up, surprised. "Thank you, sir. I just wanted to help," she whispered. Daniel turned to Chef Antoine. "You should keep this recipe. In fact, I'd like you to serve this soup to every guest tonight. It's exactly what this restaurant needs." Chef Antoine smiled proudly at Maria. The rest of the staff, who had gathered in the doorway, clapped quietly. Anna brought Daniel a third bowl, and the news began to spread through the restaurant that the soup was back to its old glory, maybe even better. That evening, as the dining room filled up, every guest received a bowl of Maria's special tomato basil soup. Some of the regulars, who had almost given up on La Belle Table, were surprised and delighted. They called their friends and took pictures of the food. A family who visited every Friday smiled and asked for seconds. An elderly couple who used to come every month but had stopped because the food had changed finished every drop and asked to thank the chef. Word started to spread quickly. Customers left positive reviews online, mentioning the soup and how it reminded them of home. The restaurant staff, who had been so tired and discouraged, now worked with new excitement. Peter baked extra bread to go with the soup. Lisa decorated the plates with fresh herbs, and the servers smiled at every table. Maria's life changed almost overnight. People who had never noticed her before started greeting her every morning. Some asked for her advice about spices or how to chop vegetables. Chef Antoine invited her to help taste test other dishes. Sometimes he even let her share ideas for the menu. Mrs. Carter, the manager, made sure Maria took breaks and gave her a small bouquet of flowers as a thank you. Maria, still shy, felt a sense of belonging she had never felt before. Behind the scenes, Daniel Harper kept watching. He spoke with Chef Antoine and Mrs. Carter, wanting to know everything about Maria. He learned how she had come to the city alone, how she sent money back to her family, and how she always arrived early and left late. Daniel realized that Maria wasn't just a helper, she was the quiet force that had kept the kitchen going during hard times. One day, Daniel invited Maria to sit with him for a few minutes after lunch. He asked her about her life, her dreams, and where she had learned to cook. Maria shared stories about her mother and grandmother, about how cooking had always been a way to show love in her family. Daniel listened carefully, smiling at her simple, honest words. "You have a real talent, Maria," Daniel said softly. "Would you like to learn more about cooking? We could help you become a chef." Maria's eyes widened. She never thought someone like her would be offered such a chance. Nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Daniel smiled and handed her a letter. "I want you to start as a junior cook. We'll pay for your cooking classes if you accept. And of course, your soup will stay on the menu forever." Tears filled Maria's eyes, not from sadness, but from happiness and relief. She thanked Daniel again and again, promising to work hard and learn everything she could. When the rest of the staff heard the news, they cheered and hugged Maria, who blushed but couldn't stop smiling. From that moment, Maria was no longer just the kitchen helper. She was part of the team, someone whose ideas mattered and whose quiet courage had saved the restaurant. Daniel made sure everyone knew the story, and the soup became known as Maria's miracle soup. The customers kept coming, filling the dining room night after night. The restaurant slowly returned to life. Daniel, who had once thought of closing La Belle Table, decided to keep it open and even started planning for the future. He knew he had found something rare, a team that cared, a chef with heart and a new recipe for success. As the days passed, Maria's confidence grew. She still worked hard, still arrived early, and still loved the simple things about her job. The smell of fresh bread, the sound of laughter, the warmth of the kitchen. But now she knew she belonged, and she knew that even the smallest person, with a gentle heart, could make the biggest difference. And every time someone ordered the soup, Maria smiled, knowing that her quiet voice had finally been heard. After that long and difficult Friday, the kitchen finally became quiet. The chairs were stacked on the tables, the lights were dim, and everyone else had gone home. Adia stayed behind, slowly wiping the counters. Her mind was still busy thinking about the soup, the the disappointed faces of customers, and her own small voice that Chef Antoine had ignored. She remembered the soup pot, sitting cold and half full, and she decided to taste it one last time. She dipped a spoon and tried a small amount. The taste was even flatter now, almost sad. Maria's heart ached a little. She thought of her mother's kitchen, where food was made with care, not just for a job, but to make people happy. Maria closed her eyes and remembered her mother's tomato soup, rich and full of flavor, with a tiny spark of something special, her grandmother's secret. Touch. As she finished cleaning, an idea started to form in her mind. Maybe she couldn't fix everything, but she could try to fix the soup. Quietly, Maria took out a few ingredients from the fridge. She found some tomatoes, fresh oregano, a small bottle of sherry vinegar that had been sitting at the back of a shelf, and a bit of smoked paprika. These were the things her grandmother used, and Maria trusted them. With steady hands, she began her experiment. She heated the soup gently, then started chopping the fresh oregano, breathing in its green peppery scent. She added the leaves to the pot, then slowly poured in a splash of sherry vinegar. The sour smell mixed with the sweet tomatoes, making her mouth water. Next, she sprinkled a pinch of smoked paprika, remembering how her grandmother always said it woke up the flavor. Maria stirred everything together and let it simmer. She tasted a spoonful. The soup was brighter, warmer, and alive. The vinegar gave it a sharp edge that made the tomatoes taste sweeter, while the oregano added a new layer of freshness. The paprika left a gentle smokiness at the end, just enough to make her smile. Maria tasted it again, closed her eyes, and for a moment, she was home. She thought about what to do next. Should she leave it for Chef Antoine? Should she keep it a secret? She worried about what people might say if they found out the kitchen helper had changed the famous soup. And then she remembered the tired faces of the staff, the sad look in Mrs. Carter's eyes, and the hope she saw in Peter and Lisa. Maybe, just maybe, it was worth taking a risk. Maria poured a little of her new soup into a clean bowl, covered it with plastic wrap, and left a small note beside it. On the note she wrote, "Please taste, Maria." She washed the pot and finished her cleaning. Her heart was beating fast. As she turned off the kitchen lights and quietly left for home, that night, Maria could not sleep. She wondered if she had done the right thing. She imagined Chef Antoine getting angry or laughing at her. She worried that she might lose her job for changing the recipe, but deep down, she also felt a small spark of pride. She had tried to help. She had remembered her roots and put her heart into something that mattered. The next morning, Maria woke up before her alarm rang. She dressed quickly and hurried back to the restaurant, arriving earlier than ever. The kitchen was empty, except for Chef Antoine, who stood by the stove with Maria's bowl in his hands. Maria's heart pounded in her chest. Chef Antoine saw her and called her over. He looked tired, but there was something gentle in his eyes. He held up the bowl and asked, "Did you make this?" Maria nodded, too shy to speak. The chef took a spoon and tasted the soup. He stood still for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "This is good, Maria. Very good," he said, surprising her. He asked her what she had added, and Maria explained about the sherry vinegar, oregano, and paprika. Chef Antoine listened carefully, then smiled, a small smile, but a real one. "You have a good taste," he told her. "Would you help me make it again for today's service?" Maria was stunned. No one had ever asked for her help like this. Together, she and Chef Antoine prepared a new pot of soup, using her recipe. The chef was careful to watch and learn each step, and Maria felt her confidence grow with every minute. When the other staff arrived, they noticed the wonderful smell coming from the stove. Peter took a deep breath and grinned. "What smells so good?" Lisa tried a spoonful and her eyes went wide. Even Mrs. Carter came in and asked for a taste. Everyone agreed it was the best the soup had tasted in a long time. As the restaurant opened for lunch, the new soup was served to every table. The customers noticed right away. They called the waiters over, asking about the delicious new flavor. Some even asked to meet the chef. The waiter smiled, proud to serve something special again. For the first time in weeks, the dining room filled with laughter and happy voices. The kitchen buzzed with excitement. Later that afternoon, Maria saw a man she recognized, the quiet customer who always sat in the corner taking notes. He tasted the soup and looked up in surprise. He called Mrs. Carter over and whispered something to her. Maria watched from the kitchen, not knowing that this was Mr. Daniel Harper, CEO of La Belle Table. All she saw was another customer enjoying the soup, and that was enough to make her happy. When the busy day finally ended, Chef Antoine gathered the staff together. He told them about Maria's idea and how she had saved their most famous dish. The team clapped and cheered, and Peter patted Maria on the back. Lisa hugged her, and Mrs. Carter said, "You have made us proud, Maria." For the first time, Maria felt truly seen, her heart filled with joy. As she walked home that night, Maria thought about how a simple act of courage could change everything. She had used her voice, trusted her heart, and found a way to help the people around her. The kitchen did not feel so big and scary anymore. Maria was still shy, but she knew she belonged. From that day on, the staff looked at Maria differently. They listened to her ideas, asked for her help, and thanked her for the little things she did each day. Maria worked harder than ever, but now she did it with a smile, knowing she had made a difference. The soup became a symbol of hope for everyone. At La Belle Tabula, reminder that sometimes even the quietest voice can bring the biggest change. ChatGPT said, "It was a Friday afternoon when everything in the kitchen seemed to fall apart. The sun was shining outside, but inside La Belle Table, the air was heavy and tense. Maria arrived, as always, before her shift, tying her hair neatly. And putting on her clean white apron, she could feel something was wrong the moment she walked into the kitchen. The head chef, Chef Antoine, was pacing back and forth, his face red with worry. The other cooks whispered in small groups, looking anxious. It was supposed to be a busy weekend, and all the tables were already reserved for the night. Suddenly, the sous chef, Mr. Taylor, rushed in, looking troubled. He asked to speak with Chef Antoine in private. After a few minutes, everyone heard the kitchen door slam. Mr. Taylor walked out, grabbed his coat, and left the kitchen without saying another word. Chef Antoine stood frozen in place, then announced to everyone, "Mr. Taylor has quit. He will not be coming back." The kitchen became silent. The sous chef was responsible for making sure all the orders came out right and on time. Without him, there would be chaos. The other cooks looked worried. Maria watched as Chef Antoine tried to stay calm, giving out orders in a louder voice. Than usual, "Peter, you handle the appetizers. Lisa, take over the grill. Maria, you help wherever needed." Everyone nodded and rushed to their stations, but the panic in their eyes could not be hidden. Soon the kitchen filled with clattering pans, sharp voices, and the smell of burning bread. Orders started to pile up. The waiters came in and out, calling for dishes that were not ready. Customers began complaining about slow service. Maria kept moving, helping wherever she could. She washed dishes faster than ever, chopped onions and peppers, and even helped plate salads. Still, she could feel the tension building. The head chef was sweating, moving from station to station, trying to fix mistakes and speed things up. Lisa burned a steak, Peter forgot to add dressing to a salad, and someone dropped a tray of bread on the floor. It seemed like everything that could go wrong was going wrong. In the middle of all the chaos, Chef Antoine shouted for the tomato basil soup to be prepared. This soup was supposed to be the restaurant's best dish, the one that brought customers back. But when Maria took a taste of the soup, she frowned. The flavor was not right. The soup tasted flat, as if something was missing. She remembered the soup from her childhood, full of freshness and warmth, but this bowl tasted bland and lifeless. Maria watched as the head chef, busy with 100 other things, quickly checked the pot. He added a bit of salt and pepper, shrugged, and told the waiter to serve it. Maria hesitated. She wanted to say something, to mention that the soup needed more acidity, that the tomatoes were not bringing the bright flavor they should. But the kitchen was so loud, and Maria was just the helper. She had never spoken up before about the food. Still, she thought of the customers waiting outside and how disappointed they would be if they tasted this soup. At first, Maria decided to stay silent, just like she always did, but the feeling that she could help grew stronger. Finally, when Chef Antoine walked past her, Maria took a deep breath and spoke in a quiet but steady voice. "Ah, chef, the soup maybe. It needs a little more acid. The tomatoes are very sweet today. Maybe some vinegar or lemon juice could help." Chef Antoine stopped, surprised to hear Maria speak up. He glanced at her, then waved his hand, brushing off her suggestion. "Don't have time, Maria. It's fine. Just keep helping with the plates." Maria nodded and returned to work, but her words echoed in her mind. She wished she could do more, but she did not want to upset the chef. As the evening went on, more customers complained. Some sent their soup back, saying it didn't taste as good as before. The waiters frowned, knowing this meant trouble. The kitchen felt even more stressful, with everyone trying to fix problems and keep up with orders. Maria continued to help wherever she could, trying to keep the peace, but she saw how tired and worried everyone looked. Chef Antoine's shoulders sagged with every complaint. It was a long night. When the last plate was served and the customers finally left, the staff gathered in the kitchen, exhausted and disappointed. Chef Antoine sat down, his head in his hands. The waiters cleaned the empty dining room in silence. Maria felt the weight of the evening pressing on her heart. She wished she could help, but she didn't know how. She remembered her suggestion about the soup and wondered if it might have made a difference. As Maria swept the floor and washed the final dishes, she overheard the staff talking in the corner. "If the soup isn't good, no one will come back," Peter said sadly. "Used to be our best dish," Lisa nodded, agreeing. "People are saying the restaurant isn't as good as before. What if we lose our jobs?" The worry in their voices made Maria's chest feel tight. When Maria finished her work, she paused in front of the big soup pot. The leftover soup sat there untouched. She picked up a spoon and tasted it again. Yes, it was still missing something. She wondered why no one had listened to her. But then she thought about her mother, who always told her, if you see something wrong, try to fix it. Maria decided that she would not give up so easily. That night, Maria went home feeling both tired and determined. She replayed the evening in her mind, thinking of all the small ways she could help. She promised herself that she would find a way to make things better for everyone, even if it was just with a bowl of soup. She believed that even a kitchen helper could make a difference if only someone would listen. Outside, the city lights twinkled, and Maria looked up at the stars, searching for hope. Tomorrow was another day, another chance. And in her heart, Maria knew she was not finished trying. ChatGPT said, Maria Alvarez had always been a quiet girl. She grew up in a small town where her family didn't have much, but they were close and cared for one another. Maria's father was a gardener, and her mother cooked for the local school. From her mother, Maria learned how to chop onions without crying and how to make every meal taste like home. But Maria was never the kind to stand out. She always let others talk while she listened, picking up the small details that most people missed. When Maria moved to the city, everything felt big and loud. The buses rushed past, people hurried everywhere, and even the air seemed faster. She missed her little house and the smell of her mother's cooking, but she knew she had to find work. To help her family, Maria saw a sign outside a place called La Belle Tabula restaurant with a bright red door and big glass windows. The sign said kitchen helper needed, no experience necessary. Maria held her breath and walked inside. The manager, Mrs. Carter, was a woman with sharp eyes, but a kind voice. Right. She asked Maria a few questions, glanced at her hands, and nodded. You start tomorrow. Be on time, wear black shoes, and keep your hair tied back, Maria said. Thank you in a soft voice, feeling both scared and excited. She had a job now, and even if it was just cleaning and chopping, she would do her best. The first morning, Maria arrived before the sun was up. The restaurant was still dark and smelled of old onions and cleaning soap. She found her uniform, a plain white apron, and put it on. Her job was to sweep the floors, wash dishes, and cut vegetables for the cooks. She moved quietly, hoping not to get in anyone's way. The kitchen was full of busy people. Chef Antoine, the head chef, shouted orders in a mix of English and French. Peter, the pastry chef, hummed while he made dough. And the other helpers talked and laughed as they worked. Maria noticed right away that La Belle table was not as fancy as it looked from outside. The walls were chipped, and sometimes the food ran out before the end of the night. The cooks worked hard, but they looked tired. Some nights only a few tables were full, and the waiters whispered that business was bad. The restaurant had once been famous for its tomato basil soup and chocolate soufflé. But now people on their phones left harsh reviews and complained about slow service. But Maria did not complain. She kept her head down and her hands busy. She washed plates until they sparkled, peeled carrots and potatoes until her fingers ached, and swept up the kitchen at the end of every night. The other helpers sometimes teased her for being so quiet, but Maria just smiled. She remembered her mother's words, "Let your work speak for you." So Maria worked hard, and slowly, some of the staff started to notice. Peter, the pastry chef, would save her a piece of warm bread, and Chef Antoine would nod at her when she cut the vegetables exactly the way he liked. What Maria didn't know was that the owner of the restaurant, Mr. Daniel Harper, had started coming by to watch. He was a tall man with silver hair and gentle eyes, but he did not let anyone know he was the CEO. He would sit in a corner table, wearing a simple jacket, and order the lunch special. Sometimes he would watch the kitchen from the hallway, taking notes on a small pad. He was worried about La Belle table. The restaurant was losing money, and he had to decide if he would keep it open or close it down. Daniel wanted to give the place one last chance, but he needed to see if there was any hope left. One afternoon, as Maria was wiping down the counters, she saw a man in the hallway watching her. She didn't know he was the CEO, but she noticed the kind way he smiled. She kept working, and when she accidentally dropped a bowl, the man didn't scold her, he just nodded and went back to his table. That made Maria feel a little braver. Maybe she belonged here after all. As the days passed, Maria became a small but steady part of the team. She listened closely to the chef's instructions, learned how to make perfect garlic bread, and discovered that even the smallest job mattered. She started to recognize the regular customers, the elderly woman who always ordered soup, the businessman who read the newspaper, the family who celebrated birthdays with chocolate cake. Sometimes Maria imagined what it would be like to cook for them, to make food that brought smiles instead of complaints. But still Maria stayed quiet. She didn't speak up when the cooks argued, or when the head chef complained about the tomatoes being too watery. She did her work, kept her thoughts to herself, and dreamed in silence. She remembered her mother's recipes, the taste of fresh basil, and the warmth of home-cooked meals. She wished she could help more, but she was just the kitchen helper. Meanwhile, the restaurant's troubles grew. There were fewer and fewer customers, and the staff worried about their jobs. Some nights, Mrs. Carter looked sad as she counted the money from the cash register. Maria heard whispers that the place might close soon. The cooks grumbled, the waiters rolled their eyes, and the hope that once filled La Belle table seemed to fade a little more every day. But Maria kept working. She arrived early, left late, and made sure everything was clean and ready for the next day. She believed, deep in her heart, that small things mattered. Maybe no one noticed now, but someday her hard work might make a difference. What Maria didn't see was that Daniel Harper, the CEO who watched from the shadows, was paying close attention. He saw how the staff treated Maria, how she never complained, and how she made the kitchen a little brighter, even on hard days. He wondered if she might hold the secret to saving the restaurant, though even he didn't know what that would look like yet. Maria Alvarez was just a shy kitchen helper, but as the days turned into weeks, she became the quiet heart of La Belle table. And soon, the world would see how one quiet girl could change everything. 2-2